It did work.
I
Oh,
think they fixed it.
I guess so.
All right. Five, four, three, two. Welcome to the Lost Slowdown with your host, Claude Justin.
What's up, guys? Oh no, we don't usually do that.
We don't usually do that, but this is the book podcast number 7 where we do
Okay.
that. Every seventh podcast we'll do it.
Okay. So catch us on 14 for the
Yeah.
next one.
Yeah. We'll see if we keep that up. Um, all right. Well, it's been a couple weeks since we did the last one. And yeah, Justin, you want to kick it off with kind of what you've been hearing and rediscovering on your re-listen to the old Lost Slowdown podcast?
I do. Yeah. I been making a lot of progress. So just to clarify for everyone, I've been listening to everything, but before that, I had listened to some episodes here and there. So like the ones that I just heard recently, I haven't listened to again. So as a result, I moved from season 4 straight to season 6 because I listened to the entire season 5 like right before that. So,
I see it.
so I'm on season 6 now, even though I was just on season 4 previously. So
Because you're saying you listened to season 5 like recently?
yeah, like shortly before I started the like full
Yeah.
on
Oh,
from the
gotcha.
beginning thing.
Wow.
So like I just I remembered all those episodes, so I just didn't feel like listening to all those again, so I just went
Hmm.
ahead with the ones that I haven't listened to in a long time.
Okay.
Um so yeah, so I'm into season 6, and it's like season 6 was a weird time, and it's really interesting to hear like some of our perspectives on what they're doing, because we really don't know.
Hmm.
um like especially with the Flash Sideways, like that's probably the most dramatic thing. I like we're both like, they're gonna surprise us, there's gonna be a thing coming here, but it's and I even remember people calling it an epilogue, but I am still kind of amazed that it really wasn't a prevalent theory, like what it actually ended up being.
Hmm.
Somehow they've distracted us or something. um uh and yeah, I think it's a weird
It's like a
uh
meta. It's like the big meta Lindelof shuffle, right? They're like, is it
yeah,
A? Uh, they changed the timeline because of Jughead, right?
right,
Or
right.
B? What's option B?
uh yeah, B should be, I guess, like one of the theories was like at the end of the show, I think you said something like this, and I think other people were thinking something like this, like they would get the chance to go back,
Ah,
and
okay,
like do it over. And so in a way, like it would be the epilogue in that sense, like they get to live out their lives, um like they never went to the island, basically.
gotcha. Okay, yeah. Okay, but then it turns out to be option C, which
Right.
wasn't at the table. Like
Yeah.
they were dead.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah, it didn't seem like that should have been an option. But like option A falls apart like pretty quickly. And I think this is something that, we talked about on the podcast a lot. Like, they tell you, if you track it, the whole idea of it, was we're gonna blow up this bomb, and then blah blah blah, station won't be built, blah blah blah, we won't come to the island, blah blah blah, right? That was the point.
Yeah, yeah.
But that event took place in 1977, you
Hmm.
know so you know basically, like, uh the changes, like stuff before that shouldn't have been changed.
Hmm.
The
Remember us
basic
talking
point
about
I'm
that?
making. And
Yep.
they tell you pretty quick, um that some of it did. It isn't long before it's clear that stuff before that was different too.
Mhm.
Um, and like probably the most dramatic version of that, I haven't actually got to is the stuff with Ben's dad, where he's like, "Oh yeah, we in the Dharma Initiative and went to that island, and that
Mhm.
was nice, and then we came, and it's like what?"
Yeah.
Like, what? So like, uh then it becomes harder, then like you have to do like serious contortions to try to like make it, like you really have to get involved into some like dark level like time manipulation over, like multiple time period, it just
Mhm.
it becomes like, is it really this complicated, like like I mean, Dark will do that, but like Lost, like approach to time travel was never that ridiculous.
Yeah.
They never went into the territory of like multiple, Primer or some multiple versions of people running around doing shit in different
Oh, yeah.
times, and this one's going against that version, and like it's a lot more like contained on that level. So anyway, it's like it's just interesting, and also just like what's up with the man in black, what is his real agenda? Um, and talking about Jacob and stuff. So like the one I was just listening to was the Lighthouse
Oh, yeah.
episode, infamous episode.
Mhm.
And like I was thinking about a couple of things. Like one sort of small thing I was thinking about with the Lighthouse is I think it's I think I think the way they presented is like unnecessarily confusing. Like there's this whole setup where it's like, okay, Hurley, you got to get Jack and you got to go to this lighthouse and you got to turn it to 108 because someone's coming to the island. Like that's the hook that gets them out
Mhm.
there, And then they go, and Jack sees the his like childhood home in the mirror when they turn a wheel. I guess to the because the names are on a wheel.
Mhm.
Um, and then he's like, oh, he's been watching me, and then he smashes it, and then he like looks out the ocean, and Jacob's like, Jack has to do something important and he needs to find it for himself,
Yeah.
and Hurley's like, well, I didn't do your mission. He's like, oh, they'll find some way, whatever, you know like
Which now to stop right there real quick, like it wasn't that Jacob was like, "No, actually that's exactly what I wanted to happen." I knew that, 108, I told you 108 because I knew what it was on before and that you'd have to pass Jack's house when you turned it there and Jack would see it and then get
Mhm.
upset. So it's not necessarily like Jacob's thinking 10 steps ahead,
Yeah.
right?
And yet it seems like that's what I'm trying to say. It's like it feels like that should have been the point. And he almost says that, but then he also says like, no, it was a real mission, seemingly.
Mhm.
And Widmore comes, right? It does seem insinuated that that Widmore and Jacob had some contact, and
Mhm.
I do question whether the lighthouse was really needed. I mean, especially because Jack smashes it and Widmore comes anyway, and there's really never any discussion that there was a problem. So I don't, I'm not really clear on whether it was needed to do that, but it does. He doesn't like totally drop the facade and say like, yeah, this was just a ruse, but he does say he wanted Jack to see that, so that was part of the point, but it seemed like he wanted to do a twofer,
Yeah.
and like get them both done, and he didn't necessarily predict that Jack was going to smash it, I
Yeah.
guess. I don't know how well he really knows Jack, honestly. No offense, because it wasn't that surprising to the rest of us, but how much has he even like been around Jack, like
Yeah.
um so anyway, yeah, like that part is just unnecessary.
Well,
And
can I just say, yeah, just yeah, that's. I mean, we have talked for hours, and we could talk for hours about Jacob, not knowing these people. Because I was just gonna say, like, the whole premise still keeps just being so weird to me. Where it's like I bring people to the island because they're broken. It's like, but you don't know what's broken about them, or do you? Do you know what they need to be healed, or do you just assume they'll get healed through their own course on the island, and that's enough? And what's additionally odd about that is it's not like that happened to him, and he knows for a fact that this is a good process because that's what happened to him or
Right.
something. You know what I mean? Like the island
He
saved
came
me. I was
there
on the
like
path
in
to whatever.
utero.
Yeah. So it's just anyway. Okay.
He
Yeah.
didn't have the chance. No, actually, that's something I wanted to talk about specifically. So I was going to get to that after I got to like my smaller points.
Yeah.
Um, because that yeah, that was actually the main thing I wanted to talk about. But anyway, yeah, and then the 108, like it says like Wallace. I mean, they don't even really show it very well in the episode. It kind of just flies by and like no one worries about it again. Um, but I do remember like back in the season 6 days, there was a ton of like Wallace. Oh my God, Wallace! Everyone was losing their mind.
Uh
They're like,
huh.
"Who's Wallace? When's Wallace gonna show up? Wallace is Walt. Wallace is Widmore. Wallace is And it's like
Yeah.
it's hard for me. Like the best explanation I could come up with at the time was that like it wasn't really about the name on 108, but about like the thing needed to be facing that way because like although it is used in this like crazy magical way, it's also just a normal lighthouse, and he just
Yeah.
wanted the thing to point in the direction that 108
It
was.
wasn't even like, but it wasn't like he's like, and then turn the light on at the lighthouse, and
Yeah,
But
he
yeah, I
doesn't say
agree.
that.
But it just,
True.
I, I, I would, yeah, I feel like my instinct tells me that there would be a practical reason like that underneath the sort of thematic supernatural reason that we actually deal with.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could see that being a thing. But yeah, the whole idea of the lighthouse points, or is maybe how he brought people to the island or something, or part of it. But it points to, I don't know why it's their childhood home or something, or wherever they were when they were most broken or something, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it
Yeah.
sort of raises the question about what. Okay, well, what would it show for Wallace, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and they never, I mean, it's just yeah, it just doesn't even come up. But so okay, so this is a small thing that kind of segues into the big thing. So so Jack sees his childhood home, but before they get there, we see a couple of other flashes in the mirror. I had forgotten about this, but we see the sort of church or temple type place where Son and Jen get married,
Uh huh.
which is the place where they were when Jacob visited them.
Yep. Yep.
He comes to their wedding and touches them and so on. And
Hmm.
then the other place we see is the church where Sawyer was at his parents' funeral
Uh huh.
when Jacob came up to him and, gave him the pen and
Yeah.
stuff, and touched him and like, right? But then
Mhm.
Jax chose his childhood home.
Mhm.
Jacob came to Jack in the hospital. Like, I was just like, I don't know. I guess I get that it's like harder to show the hospital, like,
Or
like
maybe
dramatically.
it's where Jacob went to visit that person last. Oh, that doesn't make any sense.
First, maybe.
Maybe I meant first. Yeah, yeah, I guess I meant first. Yeah, because if the hospital was after.
Though I had the impression that that was the first meeting, because he touches them all.
Yeah.
I mean, we had to talk about that because, the first time he sees Hurley and Sayid is after the island. It's post Oceanic 6, He comes up to
Mhm.
Hurley in the cab and after he gets out of jail because blah 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 Oceanic 6 nonsense, and he
Mhm.
goes up to Sayid when he's with Nadia,
Mhm.
so it's like they had already been on the island,
Yeah.
so it's like wait, they weren't, wait. Anyway, like I just got confused because I feel like the touching should have been the moment when they became the candidate. That should have been the first time, but because it's like if you did it before, why you got to do it again?
Maybe they not candidates when they were on the island the first time?
Well, I maybe that,
And
yeah,
the
that's
cave
kind of
was
what
the
I'm
cave,
saying.
I guess.
Yeah,
Oh
were they there
yeah.
before though? Like who can say we never saw it,
Mhm.
before that time. But it does, Locke was older, but it was still before the island, it was when he fell out of the building. Um and got the injury. So it's like it was at like various times, and maybe they just wanted to vary that or something. But I just think it's interesting how like I don't know, like it makes sense that like dramatically he sees his childhood home, like that's gonna trigger a better reaction than if they
I
show
was
the
just gonna say that.
hospital.
Yeah, that would be weird to show the head like, "What? He went to that hospital? Oh, that's not that crazy."
Yeah. Yeah, like but it just kind of broke the
Yeah.
symmetry seemingly of what the wheel did. Because it's like, why is it even watching like he presumably hasn't lived there in, decades. Like, yeah, I just find it
The
odd.
lighthouse shows you what you need to see.
So yeah, I mean, there is the idea that Jacob's been watching them. There is the thing he says that you were all broken and you were looking for something and you needed the island and blah 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 blah. And that does suggest that he knew, or if he didn't know them per se, he watched them and thought he knew them.
But couldn't you just pick any human in the world and
Well, we said that. I
Ah!
know, right? It's like,
Ah!
really the only ones? Come on. Come on.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
it also makes you wonder how he picked them. It seems so arbitrary. Like I guess it's like that goes back to what you're saying. Like maybe it was. Maybe he just did a lottery and
Well,
grabbed
I
whoever
guess
came
but,
up.
yeah, but also, like, sampled Americans,
Americans just come. They win the lottery more. What are
they
you
win
gonna
the
do?
lottery more, what are you gonna
Yeah,
do?
I know. I mean, that stuff doesn't really add up, but oh, the other thought I had that like almost works for me, because I think all of the candidates, with the possible exception of Sun, but obviously that's ambiguous since there's that whole is it Sun or Jin, which really didn't matter, but anyway, Jin was in the 70s, right? They're all in the 70s, all the candidates.
Yeah.
And I was thinking hard and I was thinking, I think Sawyer at a certain point in the 70s like mentions like, oh, the thing with my parents is gonna happen and I could go back and stop it, but what's done is
Mhm.
done. I ain't gonna do that. So that church scene, which I think is the earliest scene, because he's older than Kate is, like, so Kate's childhood scene would have been later, definitely. And I think they even have like a New Kids on the Block lunchbox, so it's like this is clearly post 70s.
Mhm.
Um, I think even Sawyer's scene is post 70s. I was thinking like, could he have chosen the candidates because he already knew they were like because they appeared in the
There it is.
70s?
There it is. Yep.
Just throwing it out there. It's something I never thought before, but I just realized like it could theoretically work. The only thing that breaks down there is Jack's childhood home. Like that seems like something that I guess it could be the 70s. That's not impossible, but it seems like
Mhm.
it could also predate that. So, yeah, but it would be weird if he chose the candidates because
So
it's
this is
like
just like another version of the time travel making Locke seem like the leader of the others.
exactly. Exactly.
Like, there's this specialness that's imparted to people who get caught up in the time travel, but their specialness has nothing really to do with it's just a happenstance.
Yeah.
It's just a coincidence that, like, while they're time traveling and people go, "Wow, they must be important."
Right, right. Yeah, did Jacob just do the same thing? And it's funny, like the original thing that I was thinking, because I was always confused why like some people on the 316 flight flash to the 70s and some people, stay in the present and go to the Hydra Island and go through all that stuff. But the answer I came up with in season 6 is the candidates flashed off the plane.
Yeah.
Because all the people who flash off are candidates. The only one who might be a candidate who didn't flash off is Sun. And I'm like, okay, maybe that means Jen's the candidate, blah blah blah. But this kind of reverses it. This is like, wait, no, no, no. They didn't flash because they were candidates. They were candidates because they flashed.
Mhm, mhm,
You know,
mhm.
like whoever flashed could have ended up a candidate. Like,
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
guess,
Just throwing it
you'd
out
have to
there.
also consider, um, you'd also have to consider the cave wall and when was that written,
Hmm. Yeah,
you
which is not
know?
clear.
Yeah.
We don't really get a date on that stuff, so yeah, it's hard to say. Uh,
And I wish we it would have been interesting to know if the lighthouse was there in the when did the lighthouse get built?
oh yeah, 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 yeah. I had the impression it should have been there in the '70s. I mean, it looked kind of old, like old and mechanical-ish. Like it seemed like an
Mhm.
old-fashioned lighthouse. There's no electricity involved, Um, but yeah, I mean, they don't date it, so who knows?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
there's Jacob doesn't say anything about that, so it's like, well, yeah, maybe. Um, but yeah, this is a central thing that I think we got to come down. We got to say something about this in the book.
Okay.
Which is like the whole to me like I'm really stuck on this idea of Jacob bringing people and like how and I know we talked about this some on the podcast before, but like to me this is just it's I don't know. It's just hard for me to reconcile. Like, okay, in the previous episode, before Lighthouse, the substitute, when Sawyer and Locke, Man in Black, go to the cave, he gives this speech where he talks about Jacob coming to them when they were vulnerable
Mhm,
and and we cut to those scenes where he visits them and he says and he choices that you made were not really choices at all the whole time he was pushing you to the island. He makes this speech along those lines. um
mhm,
and I'm not yeah, I mean, look, the Man in Black's got his own agenda. He's got his own perspective. Obviously, the way Jacob frames it later is different.
mhm.
It's up to interpretation, like whether you want to think what Jacob did was good for them or not. I mean, I think from the point of view of the show, like it's a good thing because those characters never would have been connected to each other otherwise.
Yeah.
Like, but I mean,
Well, plus they ended up saving the world
oh
from
yeah.
the spawn station explosion,
Right.
right?
Yeah, that may
We
have
just had a big
happened.
spoiler
That's true.
that everybody knows that that was important.
Yeah, yeah, the incident, all that. Yeah, sure. Sure, super important. Yeah, no one ever said that, but I'm sure it was really important.
Yeah, that's how you know it's important when nobody says it.
I do. Yeah, I want to tie in the '70s. Okay, but anyway, um he gives a speech and it just got me thinking about that tension between the idea that Jacob brought them there and the idea that Jacob, one of his like big things is choice.
Mhm,
He's always like, you have a choice. I want everyone to have a choice. You have to, Jack, I can't tell Jack what he needs to do. He's got to find it for himself, like he's got
mhm.
this very like I don't interfere. I mean, that's his whole thing, right? It's a
Yeah.
huge they make that point over and over again in season 6. But then, the way the Man in Black frames it, it's like he's like almost mind controlling them or something. He's forcing them to choose things,
Mhm,
and it's like is that true? I mean, how does it work? What does it mean to say that he's pushing them to the island like from their points of view, right? I think if you ask them, I think they have the impression that they made their own choices.
mhm.
And, the Man Black says they're not, but like, are they? I don't know. Like it's just something I'm stuck on. Like how does it make sense that it's internally consistent, right? The story, if you look at how the characters ended up on the island, like it just doesn't like where does Jacob come in here? Like all of it has internal logic,
Mhm.
it doesn't require anyone to step in and do any particular thing. I mean, if Jacob hadn't give
Yeah.
Sawyer the pin, you think he never would
Well,
have found a pin somewhere and written that
I
letter? Like, I don't
yeah,
know.
I think Man in Black's, speech there is really showing his bias because from his perspective, Jacob has been the controller of his life, right?
Right.
Yeah, he thinks that's all Jacob does is control, right? And he we also know that he knows Jacob does bring people to the island, or at least in some sense guides them there. Yeah, it's interesting to kind of ponder what does that really mean? Does he make things more likely to happen, but they still have control? Let's get into the Matrix, right? Choice is an illusion.
Ah,
Uh,
yes.
but it's like if somebody says you have option A, B, or C, okay, you have the choice for those three options, but there's an infinite number of options you now don't have access to.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, if someone could only give you those three, then they are controlling you. They're narrowing the list of
Mm-hmm.
possibilities for you, right? So that's kind of the thing. Maybe that squares both of their perspectives. It's like Jacob sort of guiding them in the way where events will unfold in a certain way that will make it more likely for them to make choices of their own
Mm-hmm.
free will that will eventually lead them, you know, to the answer he wants them to the place he wants them to get to. So it's like, yeah, it really calls into question what is control, right? Because if I tell you like, don't think about an elephant, right, and like you immediately think about an elephant, it's like, well, did I make you do that? Did you have your own
Mm-hmm.
free will to be able to do that? Could you have not thought about an elephant in
Mm-hmm.
that period of time? So yeah, it's a weird one.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, because it's like if you narrow it down to three options, there is still choice involved, right? You're
Hmm.
not like
Hmm.
completely controlling what they're doing, but yeah, like I don't know, but then it makes me wonder, like, like where did that come in? Did he encourage Christian to drink during the surgery?
Yeah.
Did he, like
Yeah, and the thing you're talking about with Jacob in the '70s and the concept of maybe he was interested in them because he saw them flash the '70s, like, that makes a lot of sense, especially when he visits the kids, or
hmm
the people when they're younger. That
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense that he would be like, "Oh, who are these people that flash to the island? Let me go check them out and see what they're doing in the world." And when he visits some of them when they're younger, I think Sawyer comes to mind. Yeah, he is broken, right? He's
Oh
broken
yeah.
in that way that he has some emotional trauma. So that could be a true thing at least at that point. And then of course when he's older, he's a con man and stuff. So
Right.
he's still dealing with like those issues, right? Uh,
Definitely.
uh, but yeah, I think that's what's interesting as well as along with the other stuff we're talking about is like he doesn't visit everybody at the same time, at the same age, and all that stuff. And is it important? How important is it to them being candidates? When he visited them.
hmm Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because that's the thing I was just thinking. If the '70s theory is true, then then he should have already known that Saeed and Hurley were candidates. Like he shouldn't have needed to wait until after they left the island to visit them. Like theoretically, I mean, maybe he did for some
Yeah,
arbitrary
but
reason, but
maybe they're not official. Maybe it's not official until he touches them. Like he
hmm
knows that they are conditionally candidates, but he's got to go touch. And maybe that's why he went to go do it then because it's like the end game by this point,
hmm
and everyone's coming to the back to the island, and so
Yeah.
he's like, okay, I got to make sure that they've been touched.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be interesting to spend some time I'm sure we have before, but just thinking about like, yeah, for each occurrence of Jacob visiting the people, like what was going on with them? What could he have noticed about them? Was he confirming something? Was it like, let me see if you're broken, or let me see what's broken about you, or is there something special about this because right if you go to the 70s time travel theory, then it should be like he's on a mission to find out what happened. Why did these people come here? What's interesting or unique about these people that they would be time traveling? So you think he'd be looking for some clue to answer that question? It's like it's like Richard Alpert, right, going to see Locke, and he's when
Yep.
Locke's a kid, and it's like let me try to figure out what makes
Yep.
you special or what's happening with you.
It's also my loophole theory that the Man in Black learned about his loophole because Locke time traveled and he scanned him and he saw what his plan
Mhm.
was in the future.
Yeah. Oh man.
Very dark, that whole idea. Like, oh, that's what my plan is. Okay, I guess I'll do that now.
Well, and it's like it's one of those weird things with time travel where he has to do it because he did it, and he's gonna think
Yep.
that's what he should do because that's what he's already done, and it doesn't matter if he could do something different because this is what he's already done, so he's gonna
Yep.
do it again for the first time. Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah, 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 yeah. He thinks that's what he has to do, but also that's what he did, so he
And
will do it.
I guess he didn't necessarily scan anyone that told him it wasn't gonna work out for him in the end.
Well, yeah, see, I don't think anyone came from that far in the future for him to
Yeah,
scan.
yeah.
So, because there's really no more time travel after they come back, you know. As far as I know, I mean, I guess, anything's possible later, but yeah, I don't think he ever had access to a time traveler from past the point where he was defeated and then could have
That's such
known
an
that his plan will
interesting
fail.
that's such an interesting, situation to be in because you could almost see Man in Black saying, "Hey, Jacob, like, listen, I scanned some people from the future, and like the world's fine. Like, I think, and let me leave. Like, it'll be cool. Like, no big deal. Like, it seems like that could have been some leverage for him to be like, I've got knowledge of the future now.
Hmm.
um, yeah,
But wouldn't
yeah, I
it
don't
have
know.
to be a future where he knows he's not on the island somehow?
Yeah, I guess he'd have to test it and go, let me leave the island. And if I leave, then it's fine because the future says that the world didn't end. So
That's the point. Okay.
all you gotta do is like let me leave, and then the future will be fine because that's what he did. That's what he would have always done is let him leave.
Right, 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 right.
If that's how that works, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't work with what I have in mind because the stuff he was scanning was like stuff he was in, so he was clearly still on the island.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
But but I guess if he scanned like someone else, which he could have, I mean, plenty of people time traveled that didn't really interact with him,
Mhm,
that he could have scanned. I mean, we didn't see it. We didn't see him scan Locke either, to be fair, but
mhm.
it's just like it's the only way I've been able to make sense of that scene in the donkey wheel chamber where Christian is there. And like he's like, when you came to see me in the cabin, I said blah blah, like he already knows all this shit. And it's like, but this is in the past. Like how could the Man in Black possibly know that? And the Man in Black can't be time traveling because he's accounted for with Claire the whole time. So either he's in two places at once, or two time periods at once, or he just scanned him, and that's when the plan took shape.
Yeah,
And that's what I want to believe. But it's kind of interesting, like if that's true and the Jacob candidate 70s thing is true, it means that like both of their plans were contingent on like time travel manipulations.
yeah, which is really weird.
It is really weird. It is really weird. Yeah, I don't know. I know they did a whole season about it, but I really feel like for as much as the time travel seemingly influences the plot, um, they kind of underplay it. Like it's
Yeah,
sort of like, they get a tour through these like interesting times and they get some Dharma, stuff out of the way, but it doesn't get it, they're not like um No one's like, why didn't anyone ever have the idea? Okay, so let me throw this out. This is bothering me now. Wow. Okay. So like Dan uh is
Uh-oh.
there, right? And his whole thing, the reason they do the incident is like, okay, we're the variables. So we're gonna drop this bomb and then this thing won't happen and then that thing won't happen and blah 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 blah, right? But
Mhm.
but like I'm thinking, um, well, like he was there when they were originally like when Locke turned the wheel and
Mhm.
that, or sorry, Ben turned the wheel the first time. That was the point. When Ben turned the wheel and the island started blipping through time and stuff,
Yep.
you know, they have this whole thing where Locke's like, I gotta go back to the wheel. Like that's where this started, you know. And Dan, you know, hears that and agrees. He's like, yeah, that makes sense. Sure. Right. So they go back
Mhm.
and guess what? Like it does stop that from happening. Right. And he knows
Yep.
all this. Why didn't he ever think like, wouldn't it be simpler to just go back in time and stop like the original thing, you know, like stop Dharma from coming to the island, or you know, like aren't there easier ways
Wait, who to do what?
for like Dan, you know, like if he wants to prevent the consequences of the Swan station being built, like I'm just surprised he's not thinking more in terms of if you want to change the future and you know that there's a place where you can do some time travel, like I'm just surprised he didn't think about using that in some way first rather
It's too
than
dangerous.
it's too dangerous, but detonating a bomb ain't like
No, that's a calculated risk. He did some mathematics and some physics.
oh okay, that's where the physics came in. That big
Yeah.
notebook. Look at these
So, I
calculations.
mean, so many people should have who knew about the time travel should have been more interested in it, right? But yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. So,
Yeah, that
what
isn't the only
people
example,
think
but
is
it's the
this,
first thing that
so
came up since like he has a specific sort of time travel based plan, right? We're going to change the future because we're in the past right now. You know, that's the whole idea. And yet he's
it sounds like
uninterested.
he was a bit myopically focused on stopping the Swan Station from being built so that Desmond wouldn't have a button to
Yeah.
press, right?
Yeah.
Versus having a wider lens of, like you're saying, stopping Dharma from coming there together, all
Right.
coming to the island
Right.
together.
Which like really like
Uh,
for him, I mean, we brought this up at the time, I know, like he didn't come on 8:15. That didn't have
mhm,
anything. He came because Widmore wanted Ben and Ben
mhm,
is still there. Like I don't see any particular reason. I mean, you could argue, I mean, he Ben banishes Widmore after the purge and that was all well before 8:15. Like I see no
mhm.
reason to believe that Widmore wouldn't have still wanted to send a freighter, even if A-15 hadn't crashed there. Like, it's not obvious to me that Faraday and Charlotte, that's who he's mainly concerned with, wouldn't have been there anyway. You
Hmm.
know, even if the plane didn't crash. Like, I always thought that that didn't really add up. Like, for
Yeah, it's like Dan forgot which season he joined the show.
right. Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, if
Yeah,
I stop the inciting incident from the pilot, then I stop everything, right?
yeah.
Like that's not how the story works.
Mm-mm.
I don't
But
know.
that's, to their benefit, and maybe this is where they got in the writers' room, that's what the audience cares about, that's what
Yeah,
they think, that's the big incident,
right.
right? So many times the show goes back to that, that flight and that moment and stuff, so it's kinda like what we were saying with the lighthouse and Jack's showing Jack's childhood home versus showing what would be more reasonable, but less sort of, uh, um what word do I want to use here? Less like catering to the audience in a
Right.
way,
Yeah, yeah.
catering to the logic more, right? Which is what we want versus catering to the audience and going, well, the audience thinks this, or there'll be a better reaction if it's this.
Right.
So yeah, maybe that's the kind of thing that happened there too with that, where it's like, well, we got to keep it focused on the Swan Station and 815
Right.
and Desmond, America's favorite, the world's favorite character.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Uh,
Greatest TV
so
character of all time.
greatest TV character of all time because the one episode that was interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed.
I feel like that should go in the nitpickers book. Let's write that down, like dismantling Desmond or something.
Yeah, 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 we absolutely need
Like
to do
like
that.
gotta be like, listen, guys, we know we have a fond memory of him, but like, here's all the times he was
Yeah,
awful.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I think it's very, I mean, when we were doing those commentaries, like the case against Desmond is pretty
yeah,
strong.
it
Like
was very
his
strong.
his loyalty and like helpfulness to the
Mhm.
others is like very minimal.
Yep.
Like there's a couple of times where he puts it on the line for them, but for the most part, it's like, well, you know, if you're not standing in my way getting to Penny, like, okay.
Yeah. That was it. That was it. Why he ended up, in the church at the end, I guess, was because he woke them up at the end. Because in the real life, he didn't care about them at all,
I
like,
know. He
almost
didn't
to
want
the
to go
point.
back to the island. He was pissed
No,
as shit when
no.
Widmore brought him back there.
He wasn't like, "Ah, yes, back with my friends."
No, hell
"I came back
no.
to save you all." And
Oh
yeah,
my
even his
God.
greatest sacrifice was still selfishly trying to get to Penny
Yep,
and
yep,
be
yep. He
with.
wasn't doing it to help them. He wasn't doing it to save the island. He just thought that he'd go back to the Flash Sideways world because I don't know why he thought magnets sent him there. I'm not sure. But yeah, like that was his whole thing. And then he's like, oh no, I was wrong. It's like, okay, great.
Oh, no, I was wrong, yeah, oops.
It's like, yeah, what? I don't
Yeah,
know. Yeah, I think that is a good thing to put in there because I think it's I think if you lay it out for people, I really feel like the main thing with Desmond on the show is like, it's a charismatic actor and he gets these like
mhm,
heady sci-fi plots, you
yes,
know?
yeah,
And I think that's what people liked. But like if you actually look at who the character is and how he connects to the show around him, I think I said this before, like the Desmond show, if you just follow that, like you can get on board, you know? But if you
mhm,
watch Desmond in the wider context of Lost, it's like he's a selfish bastard.
yeah,
I mean, like, why are we celebrating this guy? Like, what did he ever like?
mhm,
It's just I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense. It's just very strange. And there's another version of the show where like Desmond could be a villain,
yeah. He's
and like
yeah, same thing with Locke, right? It's just like he's the biggest villain in the show, and
yeah,
he's antagonizing everybody, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah, Desmond totally could have been. That I love that idea, man. I love the idea of a Desmond who's like, if you put him on like a spectrum, like he's just on the other side of where he is on the line, but it's
Mm-hmm.
like more like Widmore. So it's the Desmond that
Yep.
like decided he loved Penny so much that he was going to remake himself in the image of Widmore, right? Of just like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna impress your father, and maybe this is a world where like Penny likes her dad, right?
Right.
But the dad, but Widmore still doesn't think Desmond's good enough. So I could imagine that Desmond not going to the monastery and not
Yep.
doing all that stuff.
Yep.
He goes to business school or something, and
Mm-hmm.
he becomes that guy. And then it's like he's still like trying to get Widmore's approval, and he decides to do the solo race or something. Some like manly feat of adventure
Mm-hmm.
something to impress Widmore because the business stuff, he didn't have the millions or something.
Right. Right.
Or maybe it's working, but I don't know. I could see that a slight difference of his setup to where, and then when he gets to the island, all the other catalysts are the same, but now he's going to be more the villain path just because of like his relationship to like Widmore and Penny and what he
Mm-hmm.
really wanted and all that whole thing.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And another idea would be awesome, which is a completely different show, of course. But if like Widmore, Desmond was a spy for Widmore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
like just like Naomi, like, oops, just crashed on the island. Don't mind me. But it's like, you're sent by Widmore with a mission, so you can see Desmond doing that too. Just like, oh no, my boat just accidentally crashed up here. Oops. Well, now that I'm here, where's Bin Linus? You know, tell me about this.
Right.
Tell me about the others. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh man. Wow. Desmond is a mole.
Desmond is a mole. There it is. I like it.
Yeah, I like that idea too. Yeah, no, I had something like way simpler in mind, like keeping the backstory the same, but
Uh-huh.
Desmond's like single-minded pursuit of Penny makes him antagonistic towards the other characters. Like that's
Yeah.
sort of what I had in mind.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
Same character would just like more focus on that. Yeah.
yeah, like he would try to hijack the boat or so, I don't know, just
Mhm.
something where it's like this will give me the penny and like screw all you, like that's all I care about.
Yeah.
Like
I
it would
think if
it
he had more opportunities to directly screw them over in exchange for Penny, he would have. The
yeah,
fact
oh,
that
I
he was
agree.
away and not accessible, right? Like in a tangible way, I think made it where like he didn't have that many opportunities, but
That's
like
true.
he would have what why wouldn't he have sold any of that? Like when on the island does Desmond really bond with any like he has the whole thing with Charlie,
Yeah.
which is still about getting rescued. So,
Yeah.
means to an end. Um
Yeah.
uh but yeah, I'm trying to think
Besides
like
that, ain't much.
yeah.
Ain't much. Because the Charlie thing is season three.
Mhm.
And in season four, I mean, aside from the constant, like, he just sits around on the freighter. He doesn't do much. I mean, he hangs out with Sayid a little bit, but I didn't get the sense they had any kind of deep
Okay.
bond.
Well, I was gonna say I'll give him those moments in the freighter because at least it was Saeed and Desmond in it together,
Mm-hmm.
facing new situations together, and that felt like they're on the same side, But yeah, I don't know if Kimi was like, hey Des, if shoot Saeed and I'll take
Yeah.
you to the penny, you're like, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm not so sure. Yeah, it was like circumstantially, like Saeed was more helpful for him to get to Penny than the rest of the
Yeah,
people were.
their interests aligned. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like lucky for Saeed that it wasn't a thing. But yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's something. And the rescue, like Penny's boat, like they hang out some there,
Mhm.
the Oceanic Six people at
Right.
least. There's like I think there's like a couple of weeks there. So that's something. I think that's probably the closest bond that they really have besides, yeah, the Charlie stuff
Mhm.
and the time on the freighter. But like the Charlie stuff just reminds me of like one of my biggest hangups, which is the whole helicopter thing. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
that makes me think like the way they wrote it makes me think he screwed over Charlie, but they don't really play it like that. So I'm like, I don't know if they just forgot or if there's some like elaborate explanation that they want us to like intuit about like what he really saw and like I think we talked about it. Like
Yeah.
he saw a son or something. He was like, "Oh, it's a woman. I guess it's Claire. I don't know." Like I don't know what
Yeah.
I don't know what happened there, but it's just fucked up to be like, you gotta die so Claire can get on a helicopter, and then that shit never happened, and no one
Mhm.
ever said a word about it, even in the
Justin,
Flash
what
Sideways.
don't you remember the mantra on Lost, "Whatever happened, never happened"?
Oh God. Oh
Yeah. It
God.
didn't happen because it happened.
Right, 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 right.
That's how you know it happened, because it didn't happen.
Oh
Oh, man.
man.
Yeah, Claire. Every time I think of Claire, I just go, "What were they doing in season 6?"
Yeah, Claire's plot doesn't go so well. In a way, I feel like she actually gets a better plot than Sayid, but they're both in a similar boat.
Yeah, yeah. She They both wither on the vine, but I
Yeah.
think I think Sayid, yikes. His vine got
Claire at
burned.
least gets a little motion, you know.
Yeah.
She goes from the Rousseau thing to like she's gonna leave with Kate, you know. So there's at least like an
Yeah.
arc there. Like
You're right.
Saeed's
That's
just
a
kind
big
of
difference. That's a huge difference where Sayid is one note. After
yeah,
he comes back, he's one
totally
note
one
the
note.
whole time, and it's not a good sounding note.
No, it really isn't. It really isn't.
Yeah, but
Actually,
Claire at least has a change. Yeah.
yeah. It makes it feel like there's at least something happening there, and that's the problem with the Said thing. It's just like it's very underdeveloped, and
Hmm.
it's like they don't have time or something, and so like as crappy as the Claire plot is, like it was a huge shift from where her character was before, you know, and then she has to like come back from that, you know, and like Said is yeah, he doesn't get all of that, so.
Well, that's the whole thing, right? Is Claire gets to be redeemed and saved and whatever, but like Saeed's too far gone, or he just doesn't get that. But you know what's funny is I feel like maybe one day if we keep podcasting, Saeed's season 6 storyline it'll just like click. It'll just like, oh, well, if they were trying to say this, then
Hmm.
of course this is what you'd write. Like
Yeah.
maybe we'll piece that together of why. Because I was just thinking about Dougie, season 3 of Twin
Hmm.
Peaks, and just how relentlessly one note he was. But for like some, that was clearly on purpose, right?
Yeah.
And whether it was entertaining or aggravating, it was clearly on purpose. So I was thinking about that with Saeed of like they were at least it was so consistent that it seems like there's a point there, and I guess it was if it part of what makes it hard to figure out what the point is, well, of course, our hearts know what the point is, but
Obviously.
in our minds, is that we don't know what the catalyst was, right? So if we were like, oh, okay, yeah, no, he died, and the water came brought him back as a zombie,
Hmm.
and that's it, and now he's evil, and this is what happened. And then we go, okay, well, it's one note, but this is why it's this note,
Hmm.
But because we don't even get clarity on that catalyst,
Oh God,
I
yeah.
feel like it doesn't help you put the result of that in the right context. Well, literally in the right context, you can't.
Yeah.
Um, uh, yeah, it's a weird one.
Yeah, the way they wrote that is like so unbelievably bizarre.
Yeah.
I don't even it's I almost wonder if it's a practical thing like they wanted to show the temple water stuff,
Hmm.
but they didn't want it to just but they also wanted say to be claimed. And
Yeah.
so they didn't want it the temple just heals him.
Yeah. There's several ingredients in this recipe. Yes, you're right.
Like yeah, you know like
Yeah.
it was built backwards from
I
that.
was gonna say those are two ingredients. The other thing that came to mind is they also don't want a healing machine to be something that they can use for the rest of the season.
Right, right.
So if it is working, they have to immediately kill it. Like it
Yeah.
has to really not be trustable anymore. Just like we always talk about them burning down the cabin when they're done with the set piece, or whatever thing, right? The lighthouse, right? They don't want to introduce something mystical and have it be available all the time. So it could be that. So that could also be the ingredient in this writing mix. Is like, okay, well, it is going to heal them, but like we can't like be like, well, the next time someone gets shot, just put them in the temple water,
Yeah.
right? The same way like they had to like tap dance with the temple water when Ben got shot,
Right.
right? Of like, well, okay, look, we're gonna do this off screen. We're not gonna get to see what happens and how it's
Hmm.
gonna look. And like he's gonna be different. Now I can't tell you exactly how it's gonna be different because we haven't written that part yet. But like he's gonna be different, and maybe that's why he's a liar in the future.
Hmm.
We won't tell you, but yeah, and it's like that is a context for Saeed. It's like okay, what Is the equation Sayid plus water equals um equals Sayid minus bin plus water? Like basically did it a certain amount of binness, whatever was put on bin, right, as a kid when he went in the water,
Hmm.
was that same amount of whatever that is, I guess call it evil for shorthand. Uh was that also like put on Saeed, and that's what we're supposed to think? And Saeed's response is so bad, so sullen and melancholy
Hmm.
because that he was already that like that. Plus, he's got this extra thing. Like, yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's the comparison just doesn't. It's just like, yeah, they could have done it like that, right? They could have done it where they call back to the bin thing,
Yeah.
and they say the temple water changed Saeed, and then that makes him vulnerable to the Man in Black, and then then they follow it up with the
Uh huh.
temple's destroyed somehow, like, so the healing thing isn't
Or
isn't like an option going
or
forward.
if you wanna have what a like surprise of all surprises on the show, a reveal of all reveals. I mean, imagine if they would have like exactly the context you set up, right? In the context of like trying to deal with Saeed, healing Saeed, and the temple water stuff, and showing us how it's going to work. Imagine if they said all that and they reveal, like, yeah, now that makes him coming back from the temple water now makes him susceptible to the influence of Man in Black, aka the sickness. Now, guess what, audience? That's exactly what happened to Ben. And that's why Ben is
Mm-hmm.
who he is. Like, imagine
Right.
basically if they said Ben was claimed this entire time.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah. They
that
could
would have
have
been
said that.
mind blowing. That would have been mind blowing to be like, oh, this claim you heard about? Yeah, this whole thing. Yeah, here's the main character you've been following who's like
Mm-hmm.
the prime example of Man in Black's influence and how that could have colored like everything Ben did, right?
Yeah.
But no, that's not
Yeah.
what that's or did they do that? And it's just so subtle that it's
We
taken
didn't
us 50
notice.
years to get there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean that could have worked, but it's just like the way it's written, there's so many complicating factors that separate the two events that it's really unclear if they're even related.
Yeah,
Because the water's dirty, first of all, which like it presumably wouldn't have been when Ben was in there.
yeah.
um it seems like it doesn't heal him. It seems like he actually dies. I mean, they have multiple lines where they say this. It seems like we're supposed to believe that he just died and he was dead for some number of
Mhm,
hours, and then he
mhm.
just sat up. And I have the impression that that's not what happened with Ben. you
Yeah, you're
know
right. That's a good point.
and later on in the season, this could go any number of ways, but this is like, to me, like the most dramatic leap of logic I've maybe on the whole show ever. No, I'm sure that's not true. But anyway, when Saeed goes to shoot Desmond, and he's like, "Don't shoot me, brother. What did he tell you?" And Saeed's like, he said that he could bring back someone I lost, and Desmond's like, "Why do you think he can do that?" And he goes, "I died, and he brought me back." And I'm like,
Yeah.
what? You thought
Yep.
that? What?
Yeah. Yeah. Why did he think that? Who told him that?
I
Who told him the Men in
know.
Black brought him back?
I know. Like, we never saw the Man in Black tell him that on screen. Like, he says he can bring presumably Nadia, maybe
Wait a
Shannon,
minute.
whoever
Wait a
back.
minute. Did Man in Black turn into Smokey and swim up in the temple water through the Cerberus vent? Does the temple cave have a Cerberus vent in it and he flew his smoky ass in
How'd
that
he get past
water?
the ash though? What about the ash?
The Cerberus vent is a back door
Oh,
under
the
the
vent goes
ground.
goes around the ash. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Oh man, what a bad. Oh man. Really?
That's why the water was cloudy because it had Men in Black in it.
It's
Smoky.
like-
Talk about smoky
I mean,
water.
honestly, like that could work, like I almost want to believe that. But like they were just so. I don't know, like the way it comes across like the man in black was trying to get in the temple and ransack it. It's like, and if he could have just got in through that, why did he do all this other stuff?
Do you
And
think if he could go through the thing and do the other thing and go through the thing,
he
would
would
he?
not be here.
Yeah,
Yeah. All right, fair enough.
I love that. That's the answer for anything.
I
Just
know, it's so
complete belligerent.
easy.
Just complete belligerence.
Yeah, like if I say it like this, like it just shuts it down.
Yeah,
You just can't say anything else. Like, well, okay, I guess you win then. I guess I'll
yeah,
just take my ball and
yeah.
go
If you're that
home.
upset about it, then I guess you couldn't have done it. If
Yeah,
you have that
exactly.
much, yeah, that's yeah,
Yeah. It's almost like, yeah, bluster or intimidation or some kind of weird tactic of like, I'll win this argument by like distracting you by being really angry.
exactly. Yeah, the indignance. Yeah, how dare you? It's like answer the question. It's like
Yeah. Like,
yeah.
wait, does that mean you don't have an
I'm
answer?
I'm so offended by the question. I can't. Yeah, I won't dignify that with an answer. Yeah, it's a belligerent version of that. Yeah. Uh,
So the thing I was gonna say, well, okay, I want to say two things. One quick comment because I know like I've beat this dead horse like so much, and I don't want to say it again. But in the context of choices and stuff, I think the most striking thing, like in terms of Jacob, is Sayid actually because he actually just has Sayid like forcibly brought in handcuffs on the plane and. Ilana brings him and like I mean that's the as far as I know, like that's the most like direct like I'm just gonna force you to go to the island.
you mean the
Uh
choice you gave him?
yeah, exactly. Right? The choice just doesn't add up there at all. Like it makes me wish Saeed could have survived to the scene where they talk to Jacob to be like, what the fuck? Like, what's your bullshit about like I wanted you to have what I
Yeah.
never had a choice? Like,
Did did
really?
did Saeed know that Jacob did that?
Well, I think he never did because I think we talked about this before when I brought this up because I think he never found out who Alana was.
Exactly,
Like,
because she blowed up,
well, not
and then he
exactly.
blowed up.
Not exactly like what happens is because she like technically they could have met, but what happens is like he's at the temple, right?
Uh-huh.
And then the thing with the man in black happens and he attacks the temple and then Alana shows up to rescue the candidates who are there, right? So they cross paths, right?
Yeah.
They're within, they're in the same building, right? But they
Yeah.
never meet and they both go
Mhm.
their separate ways, right? Man in Black goes off with Locke's group, and Alana goes with the candidates back to the beach, and that's where she blows herself up. But like that was the closest they got to meeting again when like Saeed could have actually learned who she
But he
was,
didn't
but
even know she was on the island.
yeah, he didn't even know she was on the island. I don't think
Yeah.
he ever knew about any of that. So yeah, he really didn't know. He didn't know who that person was. He didn't know why. I
Yeah.
mean, he knew what
But
she
he
said, but
yeah. Yeah,
but
that would've been interesting, I think, for him to know that Jacob was responsible for him coming back to the
yeah,
island.
I'm kind of disappointed that like he never got to find that out because I do feel like that's kind of the greatest injustice in terms of people coming back. I mean, like Widmore kidnaps Desmond, but that's Widmore.
Mhm.
Like of course he'll do that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's Wit, but he's
Although
not like
it seemed like Jacob told him to do that.
it does kind of seem like that, but nonetheless, it was carried out by Widmore. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, technically Alana did it, but like Alana is like more directly like under Jacob's sway since we see him go to her directly and say, "I need your help." Um, it's not clear to the thing about Desmond is interesting actually. I think it's slightly um I think it's slightly ambiguous what's going on with Desmond because there is some discussion at the end, after Jacob's talked to them and Jack's the protector now, and they're talking about
Mhm.
what to do next, and I think it's Sawyer who brings up like Desmond's in this well. I think we should get him, and I think Jack says like Jacob never said anything about Desmond, like he never actually mentioned
Yeah,
it,
we talked about that. Yeah.
which is kind of
All part of his master
yeah,
plan.
yeah, exactly. It's like, wait,
Yeah.
because he says like, I think you need to kill the man in black, basically. Like That's what I'm hoping you'll be able to do. But he doesn't tell them how, and he doesn't even mention Desmond. And so it's like, he's like, there's this cave and you got to protect it. And I hope you can kill the man in black and good luck. Bye. And it's like,
Mhm.
it's just weird. It makes me wonder if Desmond was Widmore's plan, or if Jacob actually did tell him and then just failed to mention to his candidates. Like, I don't really know.
Mm,
I almost feel like it could go either way, but I do think it makes more sense that it was Jacob's plan. I just think it's very strange that he didn't mention it.
yeah.
And they say that he didn't mention it, so it's not like they weren't aware. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's not like it was just an oversight on their part, and like, oh yeah, he does, or like we could imagine like, oh, when he was talking to Jack, like he told him off screen or something.
Yeah.
Like he definitely didn't say anything about it. So I don't know.
I just got stuck on this idea. We were just talking about Man in Black and Sayid and the claiming thing, and I was trying to make a parallel with um um Robert and Montan and all that stuff
Hmm.
when they seemingly were something
Yeah, yeah.
something. And I was trying to think, okay, well, if the temple water didn't work, but Saeed was resurrected another way and then was seemingly claimed because of that. Okay, who else seemingly was resurrected and seemingly claimed? Okay, Russo's team. Okay, so I'm like, I'm just trying to think, like, does that make any sense of like maybe because not everybody who dies a few hours later comes back alive and it's and claimed right on the island. So
Right.
I was like, well,
Definitely
what was
not.
special about these two situations? And I think you can make a case they were both near the temple.
They were definitely both near the temple. Yeah, it's
So
true.
so maybe there's something in the vicinity of the temple, maybe the radius of which is the ash line.
Hmm.
Um, but maybe there's something if you're within that area and you die, you can come back, but you're claimed. And
Hmm.
those are like the 2 times it happened or something. And so I don't know exactly how it would kind of like be Man in Black's influence or his fault or his causing in an active sense or a purposeful sense, but maybe if you kind of take him out of it as someone who's directly doing it on purpose, but like it's just some phenomenon of near the temple that a dead body could come back, or maybe a dead body when he's nearby, or something.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
I guess he was just sort of outside. He was trying to get to the temple when Saeed was coming back, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's
Something about it, I
interesting.
guess
It
I
is
feel
a
like it
connection.
almost works. Has
Yeah.
there been any other temple deaths that we can think of? Somebody should have come back. Obviously.
I mean, he
Uh,
kills a whole bunch of people at the temple, but
yeah.
but that's
Oh
kind of
man,
the
imagine if
point.
they God, now see, there's your army. There's your war
Yeah.
episode, right? Like he kills all the people at the temple, and they
Yeah.
all get resurrected
It's
as
like the
fucking
Night King all of
followers.
a sudden,
Yeah,
like, and now
exactly. He's like
arise, you shall be my army.
exactly. Yeah, and then they go and like try to kill everybody, and then like Jack's like, "And Lucia, I wish you were here to help me with this army. Got to raise an army." Like I don't know. I still want to see that show. I still want to see like uh where they just do those types of plot lines.
Oh man, yeah, they really shied away from that. It's interesting. They could have. It's like they vaguely gesture in that
Yeah,
direction, but
yeah, and then imagine, you've got Man in Black and his army of dead others, storming the beach, and Jack and the Lossies and whoever else they could find. Maybe like Rose and Bernard have to come out of retirement.
oh no.
And it's like Rose is like, I'm too old for this shit.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
get her homemade battle armor on or
It's
whatever.
the
Like,
last damn time, Bernard. We're not doing this again.
Oh man, yeah, I want to see that version, and then yeah, they have to go to war, and then it looks like the bad guys are winning, and then who shows up? But Widmore, and he starts firing missiles at the beach,
Yeah,
and he
yeah,
kills all the bad others, and then yeah, that
yeah.
could have been fun.
I mean, that's kind of along the lines of something that I think we talked about last time, which is how like, like Lost doesn't really satisfy on like a normal level.
Hmm.
Like you never have in very limited ways, characters will kind of team up and like do a thing, but it's
Hmm.
usually very contained and like overall their goal isn't really unified. It's only contingent. Like we will help each other because, we want to get off the island and you want to do this other thing and you want to do this other
Uh-huh.
thing and right now we're aligned. Almost like the Desmond thing we were talking about earlier. A lot of times like that's how it works, but they never like band together and like we are gonna fight we're gonna fight the man in
Are you
black and
saying? Are you saying, it's like every man is their own island and people don't see past their differences to the common good, like life?
something. Oh God, did that shit have to come up again? God damn it, not life again. Ugh. I hate
Life
when
is ever
life shows
present,
up.
and it's always the answer,
I
and it's
hate it.
always the question.
Oh, I hate it so
Yeah,
much.
that sounds like life. Like, yeah, people, yeah, I'll work with you as long as it's what I need. But
Hmm.
then if we are at odds, now you're my enemy, and I don't care about you. Um,
Yeah, yeah. And they don't, yeah, there's just not like a real banding together. I
yeah,
mean, the closest
like
thing
live
I
together,
can.
die alone, and it's like, yeah, we'll die alone.
Yeah,
That's fine.
exactly. Yeah, that's whatever. The closest thing I can think of is that thing in season three when the others are coming and the
Hmm.
three of them
Hmm.
stay behind to like fire the rifles and stuff. Like
Yeah.
I feel like that's like the most unified they ever really get.
Hmm.
And I feel like the most telling thing is how like the red shirts are just all killed and like no one really cares or
Yeah.
even talks about it again. The
Yeah.
Jira people too. I mean, they're all just like, there's a bunch of they all died. Oh well,
Hmm.
it's fine.
You mean like when there's mass death every day all around us, and we just have to say, oh well.
God damn it, you have an example for everything. Okay, so
I'm just saying, life is always the answer.
yeah,
You
I
like
know,
you
and I
unfortunately
fucking
can't get
it
past
drives
it.
me crazy, but it works, so that's why I get mad. So what the thing I wanted to say about what you said earlier, and I'm sure this ties into life somehow, but anyway,
It has to.
you were saying like I wonder what the point of the Sayid storyline is, and maybe one day we'll figure it out. So I think that the show tells us what the closest thing to like an answer of what the
Okay.
Sayid storyline is about in the
Mhm.
final episode.
Okay.
And it's Hurley who says it. So it's in this scene where it's in the scene, right? It's where Hurley takes right before Shannon's gonna come out and they'll have their reuniting and stuff.
Okay.
Um so uh uh right so Saeed's asking questions, and Hurley's like, just trust me, okay? Don't worry about it. I trust you. And Saeed's like, what have I done to earn your trust? And then Hurley says, this is the part. I think you're a good guy, Saeed. A lot of people have told you that you're not. Maybe you've heard it so many times you started believing it. You can't let other people tell you what you are, dude. You have to decide that for yourself.
Mhm.
I think that's the closest to an explanation for what the Said storyline is supposed to be about. That like he had Ben and he had, whoever
Mhm.
in the
Mhm.
military and then like the man in black and Dogen even like telling him that he was
Oh,
evil.
yeah, it starts with your torturer, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like and like he allowed those
But
people to tell him what he was
and
and
is
he
it and
believed
it's
it.
a and it's basically by the end, it's a tragic story because he never gets over that. He never actually
Hmm.
finds a way to hear this idea and act on it. Because I mean, unless you want to say, when he sacrificed himself in the Uh,
Submarine. The
Submarine. I was
yeah.
thinking, I was like, tube.
The
Um,
tube.
there's a more technical word for
The
that.
water
Water
tube.
tube, yeah. Um, the sub tube, uh, is that, so when he like, maybe he was like, "I can, I'm a sacrificer. I know who I am," like, that's the
Hmm.
and that was him finding his identity or something, or like, obviously it's so quick you can't really communicate,
Right.
but I'm like really bending over backwards trying to figure out
Yeah.
how is it completely tragic and like he never really lives up, lives up to what Hurley said he needs to do, or was his death that moment where he did it?
Right. Right. Well, I guess the other moment was when he doesn't shoot Desmond, and I like
Mhm.
you could also take that as like deciding he's not going to
But
be the person who shoots Desmond.
but I guess, yeah, okay, okay, yeah. I definitely agree that his that's his whole story arc in a nutshell. But in terms of season 6, right? Like we were just talking about, he comes back and he's like, "Well, Man in Black is the one who brought me back." Right? So he's
Hmm.
still letting someone tell him who he is and
Yeah.
like what that means, right? In a general sense.
Yeah.
And it seems like, yeah, you would expect that he would make some change after that.
Yeah.
It's almost like dying and coming back should have reinforced the point or made him, I don't know. Yeah. I don't did that do anything? Did it make him double down on his current belief, or did it change his belief? Dying and coming back.
Dying and coming back. I mean, that itself doesn't seem like it did much. It definitely seems to me like the stuff with Dogen saying it was evil and trying to kill him and then going out to the Man in Black and the Man in Black telling him to go kill those people it seemed like that just kind of put him back in the place he was before with
Mhm, mhm,
Ben,
mhm.
you know
Right, which makes
of
sense of like, okay, here's a resurrection story. He's getting a second chance at his original mistakes. It
yeah.
seems like he just plays back into them.
It seems like yeah, he just made the same mistakes again, and they sort of have a reversal very late in the game, and
Yeah.
it goes by so quickly that it doesn't really satisfy the needs of, which is why like yeah, it's just they don't pay enough attention to the character in the later part of the season 6, so we just don't get to actually appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's almost like there should have been another Sayid episode where they had the chance to actually give his arc a you know an ending.
Mhm.
Because like kissing Shannon doesn't really do it.
Yeah.
Because like that's what he's about to do, and it's like, okay, does this like solve that problem somehow? Like,
Yeah.
I don't think it does.
Yeah. Don't Let me see what it's really said. I think you're a good guy, Saeed. A lot of people have told you that you're not. Maybe you've heard it so many times you start believing it. So, you've heard it so many times you start believing it, and other people telling you who you are really applies to a lot of the characters.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true.
but you can't let other people tell you what you are. You have to decide that for yourself. And then Saeed says, "I'm sorry, you clearly don't know anything about me." So, which is still like he just didn't hear him. He's like
Yeah.
just bouncing off a wall there,
Yep.
uh,
Yep.
and he's like,
Which tells me it's
"No,
more for the audience than it is for
yeah,
Sayid here.
exactly, yeah." Because now does he? I'm trying to remember exactly where this was in that episode. Like they haven't. They're in the car going where?
Well, Saeed's about to wake up here because
Saeed.
they're eventually going to head to the
Oh,
church,
that's right.
but
They're watching the. They're about to see the attack. Okay, that's right.
yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so we're heading for the end game here, even though there's a lot
Yeah.
of episode left.
Yeah. So exactly like you're saying, kissing Shannon, there's no like, oh, I know who I am now. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
right.
Yeah, he did that before. It didn't stop anything.
Although, like, okay, see, I want to like go out on a limb again and go and really try to find some parallels here with uh his death in the main timeline on the submarine, right? Okay, sacrificing himself for the people on the boat or whatever, right?
Right.
Um, so here he goes to like save Shannon, right?
Hmm.
So that he's sort of putting himself in harm's way to save
Yeah, yeah,
somebody.
definitely.
Um, so maybe that's supposed to be some kind of similarity. Not that it was as grave or as challenging, of course.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but I almost want that to be the point of like, when Saeed is self-actualized, he sacrifices himself for people, and these are like the two moments that's shown.
Yeah.
But again, big limb.
No, yeah, yeah, yeah. I think probably, that's what they might tell themselves or say, to try to make it work. And, it is hard to like give every character the satisfying conclusion, in
Yeah,
a way that balances out with the way the show has to
is it
build.
hard? I could do it in my sleep.
Could you? Wow. Nice. You should write some shows in your sleep, because damn.
I can. I'm tired.
Oh, okay. Fuck.
Yeah, can't write when you're
So
sleeping.
you can. Oh, but I thought you said. Okay. Wait.
Yeah, one of those. It didn't happen. That's because it did happen.
You
So,
need like, okay, so if you can do it in your sleep, but the only problem is you can't write while you're sleeping, you need like we need like a dream like a dream recorder or something where you can it'll like keep, like whatever you think of
yeah,
while you're sleeping, like it can keep
a
a
dream
record of it.
machine.
Yeah. Yeah, some kind of dream machine.
That's all we need.
Yeah, does anyone know where I can get
Let
a
me go to
dream
Amazon.com and see if there's a dream machine.
machine?
'Cause, if there is one, it's on Amazon.
They have everything.
They have everything for low, low prices. Go there. They're our sponsor. No.
Become a
Um,
Prime member today and you'll get a discount. Just put in the
use
code.
our referral code. It's 48 15 16 23 42.
Oh man. Yeah, please don't
Uh,
buy Amazon because of us. That'll be embarrassing. Like, wait, we have a sponsor that we didn't even pay?
we've had so many non-paying sponsors of the year, both real and imagined.
So
And by
true.
real, I mean they were real companies, not
Right.
actually really our sponsors.
Right. Oh, that's actually not what I thought you meant, but I guess that one actually makes more sense because I don't think we ever had any
We never actually had sponsors.
sponsors that paid us. Yeah.
No. But we have
Yeah.
some very awesome patrons who are supporting this nonsense that we are talking
That's
about right
true.
now.
That's true. That's
And we
true.
appreciate it. So let's get back on track. I want to write
Okay.
a note here to just say, is there a thematic or character link between Sayid saving Shannon and Sayid saving? Well, he didn't save them all, but sacrificing himself in the tube, the underwater tube,
Let's henceforth let's call it an underwater tube.
underwater tube.
Oh my God, Locke,
Uh,
you blew up the underwater tube.
Locke's always blowing up the. Hey Ben, how did you get back and forth to the island? Well, I was using the underwater tube.
Oh my God. I'm not here for Jack. I'm here for the
Yeah.
underwater tube.
Can you imagine like I'm sure we talked about it for the underwater tube. I love how dramatic that is, and now yeah, that's great. That underwater tubes are on the way off the island. Like, oh, thanks. Yeah, I was gonna say. What was I gonna say? I think I lost my train of thought with the underwater tube fiasco. But um,
Oh, okay. Sorry. That
no,
was
no, 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 no. It
just such
wasn't.
a
Yeah, it'll come back. We were talking about like 15 things at
Oh,
once.
you were
So
gonna make a note about
I made the
something.
note.
Oh, you already did that. Shit, there
Made
was
the
another
note. We
thing.
talked about the underwater tube. Oh, we were talking about, yeah, Ben using the tube, and then I don't know. I was gonna say something else about the underwater tube, I think, but
Okay.
okay. So I think we kind of went vertically down a bunch of paths. Was there anything more high level? Did you even get to your point that you started the podcast with? By the way, I
No,
don't
you
even
know,
know if the stage is still being set.
this is something that this is something I've learned from the podcast. I think I don't actually like to get to a point. I just like to set the
Oh,
stage.
I love it. It's like you rent out a Broadway theater and like everyone's like, "Wow, he's been setting the stage, setting the stage for hours. When is this play gonna open?" Oh, it's not gonna open.
That
I
was
just like to set the
that
stage.
was the whole point.
Yeah,
That's
that's
all
the
I
whole
wanted to
yeah,
do.
that's great. That's very meta theater of like, when is this performance? When's the first performance? Oh, there is no first performance. I just like setting the stage. That is the performance.
Yeah, it's happened multiple times. And like I gotta set the cut, and then I get to the point, and it's like one sentence, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, I gotta say that's very lost of you to spend a lot of time with interesting shenanigans, only to land with a lackluster final answer. I wonder where you learned that trick.
That's a good point, and I didn't think about it that way. No, I mean, I think the main thing that I wanted to talk about wasn't really a point,
Yeah,
but I just wanted to, uh, uh, get, get like address the idea of Jacob bringing people to the island and um how that squares with their making choices and stuff like that. You know, just because that's like a major
gotcha.
theme of the
Well, you
show.
brought it back full circle. Look at that, because I forgot where we started.
Yeah, yeah, that was the point or the topic that I wanted to bring up because I just think there's got to be something in the book about that.
Okay. Um. Yeah, I think we found several things to talk about on that front. I wonder, yeah, I wonder what kind of category that would go in. But yeah, that's interesting. Okay, I wrote that down.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not sure. It like definitely like some of that stuff could be nitpicker stuff. You know, on a few levels, but it's just it comes up so heavily in that episode, so that just made me
Hmm.
want to bring it up.
Gotcha.
So yeah, um,
All right. Well, that sounds like a good place to end it. I think.
I think so. I think so. You know, I'll have more eventually, but
Yeah, that was
we
that
got
was
some
a
stuff
sort of
done.
it went wild and crazy, but we actually had a general topic that we spun out from. So that's cool. If we need to come back to this or the book.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think most of what we talked about did link to that in
Hmm.
some way,
Hmm.
more or less.
Yeah.
I guess by design, like if Jacob brought everyone there, like if you're talking about anyone on the show, like it's related.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back next time.
Thank you. Thank you. See you next time. Bye, everybody.